Welcome to our latest edition of Lajes Connect, where we connect you with the Lajes community. My name is Ricky Baptista. I'm the Chief of Public Affairs for the 65th Air Base Group. In the studio today, we have two very special guests. We have the 65th Air Base Group Commander, Colonel Tammy Hinskton, and we have the 65th Air Base Group Superintendent, Chief Master Sergeant Justin Deisch. Colonel, Chief, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Great. Colonel, you've been here just over 6 weeks, almost 2 months. What can we expect from the new group commander? Your change of command was on the 3rd of August. And have you ever been at Lajes before?
So I was here a long time ago when I was a commander at RAF Mildenhall, 2007, I believe. It was a windy time of year, which could have been any time. But I had the opportunity to go through the torque before, all the things that have changed.
The renovation?
Yes, the renovation. And what I remember the most is the beautiful green grass and the great coffee and the wonderful people I met.
Awesome.
And
the cows?
And the cows. I saw the cows from above as we landed, and I thought the runway was going to end in the water. It was kind of terrifying. Never thought I'd be back, always wanted to come back, and here I am, so I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome, and being the group commander, I'm sure gives you a different perspective. And so, what expectations do you have from us at Team 6-5?
So I expect us to keep accomplishing the mission, which we already do exceptionally, whether it's through the weather or the communication system, the runway, the fire department, the naval stuff we work with. Just keep doing the mission. But the other things that I like to really focus on are telling our story. And that's where this comes in, is telling everybody what we do, why we do it, and show them how well we do it. And I think that's really important. And I guess that comes from a little bit of my PA background. Also, what I like to continue to work on is our partnership with the Portuguese Air Force that we work with day to day, and continuing to merge our exercises with one another, merge our off-duty events with one another, get to know each other better, really cross-talk, benchmark, and share ideas. I also like to continue to improve the relationship with our transient military members who transition every year with our local national employee population, because we have over 400 local national employees, and just continue that partnership and that relationship with them. Finally, I'd like to build more of a partnership with our local community. I know it's hard with COVID right now, but I think it's very important. My final focus is morale COVID style. Lately, the excuse is COVID. We can't do. So what I'd like to focus on is what can we do? How can we do something fun, interact with others, feel connected, but still abide by the COVID guidelines?
That's good, and it's good to be able to get our story out to the different audiences and letting people know what we do, and that we're pretty damn good at it.
We are.
And how important we are to the overall Air Force mission, to the DoD, and to the U.S. and Portuguese governments.
And the history has shown that.
Yes.
But we've kind of fallen off the telling our story piece, I think, with everything that's been happening in the world. And I just want to increase our priority on that again.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Chief, you've been here a little bit longer. I'm not sure if your rocks are going to be as big as the commanders, but please let us know from the Chief's point of view, what we can expect from our group superintendent.
Sure. Before I get to that, this is my first time at Lajes. I had never been here before. Chiefs Nikki Drago and Julia Andahar, alumni of the Lajes Field folks here, have been stationed here in the past, spoke of this place. It was a magical island with magical people, and it's been a treat and an honor and a blessing to be here. So thank you so much for the warm welcome. To answer your question, development, not just our enlisted airmen, but also, and to a certain degree, especially our local national civilians. Having worked at AFMC and Global Strike Commands with sizable civilian populations, you're familiar with the processes and the programs that are at play when it comes to civilian employees. What so impressed me with our local nationals here is they are consistently looking for ways to get to yes, and that is what is impressed. And so if there's ways that I and the boss can put extra tools in their toolbox to help us get to better yeses or quicker yeses, and I think it's incumbent upon us to do those things.
That's awesome. When we talk about innovation and those type of topics, sometimes we tend to forget about the people that are doing at the bottom, in the field, in the trenches, and it's good to be able to get the ideas from those folks so we can push on. Maybe we can find a better way of doing stuff, cheaper, more efficient, and just not as hard, smarter ways of doing it. And so it's good to see that our group superintendent is focusing on that. One team, one fight, and it's good to see Team 6-5 working together on that. Ma'am, just following up with that, Chief, but many times, many of our individuals, both local nationals and airmen, as one team, we're proud of what we do, and while we're doing it, we kind of focus on it, we put our heads down, and we want to make sure we get it right. And when we take a break, we kind of look up, and we're missing the target. We don't exactly know what's going on. Can you help define that, explain what it is that we do, why we do it, and why it's so important to the U.S. Air Force, to USAFE, and to the DoD? Give us some intent and guidance on that and make us proud of what we do.
So what we do is we fill a gap that no one else can fill. And when no one else can fill it, that's how we see how important we are. We are the bridge between our CONUS forces going downrange, whether that's AFRICOM, EUCOM, CENTCOM. We move iron between here at Lajes Field and at Marone. The iron that switches out comes to our locations because we're a middle point. Less gas and go, less aerial refueling if they can stop here. Our communication system fills the gap in the Atlantic where there's no coverage. The coverage from the land on both sides doesn't merge, and we fill that gap, and that's really important. And there's no redundancy. If we go down, that gap is present. And so that's why that's important. We also provide the weather for over 200 agencies, I believe. The communication systems are many agencies also use our communication systems. And so those are our primary missions, and that's how we fill those gaps. There's nobody else to fill those gaps. There's nobody there. And we stand in that bridge to fill those gaps. So that's what's important. That's why we do it. That's why we have to tell our story. It's easy to get lost here in the middle of the ocean. Or people think, oh, you're just on an island for a year. How hard do you work? But we do. We have a very important mission. And if we don't do our mission, things don't happen. And then if there's an in-flight emergency, since we actually are the tower for the runway, both the commercial and the military side, we are the place to land. If there's a problem, they don't want to dive into the middle of the ocean. They want to get to Lajes Field. We are their saving grace here. So that's another very important mission. We also support the mission with the POAF, who does the rescue. And there's a lot of rescue stuff going on in the islands. So we support some very important missions. And everybody touches a piece of it. And that's what I found through my immersions. Even the commissary bird coming in, and it goes to AMC, and then it goes to LRS, and it goes through each of these different little steps. And each piece of that is important. Otherwise, we're not going to get our food, we're not going to get our mail, we're not going to get what we need.
So when you mention COCOMs, to understand, we're touching and helping all the combatant commands. Without us, they may not have the logistical support needed in order to put combat forces in areas that are required. Our host nation, when you mentioned POAF, our Portuguese Air Force, and working with them, making sure that our strategic platform, which is very visual in regards to the runway, you can see that, but our other strategic platform is our communication nodes and our ability to provide communication to these different organizations, well, whether they be military or civilian organizations that are dependent on our ability to perform the mission.
Correct.
And if we can't do that, they can't do theirs. Right. And that's a huge responsibility for every single airman, Big A airman, whether local national or whether active duty member here at Lajes Field. And so I think it's good for people to take away that what we do every single day, people are dependent on that information, and we need to get that information out there.
And we cannot do our jobs, the people that work on those cannot do their jobs without support. Being, we need food at the Ocean View, that's where we eat. We need to be able to keep ourselves healthy and fit. So we have the fitness center that does that. The commissary is important, where we can do our shopping. The gas station where we get our gas. Every single piece works together to make it a fine-tuned machine so we can meet that gap. Otherwise, like you said, it doesn't get done.
That's awesome. Chief, question in regards to professional development. You use that term. From your point of view, from your expertise and experience, what type of professional development should our airmen, again, local, national, and active duty members, where can they focus on? What should they be focusing on while their time here at Lajes Field?
Sure. So I'm reminded of a quote. Someone asked Warren Buffett how he made all his money. He kind of laughed and he said, "I was right 3 out of 5 times." Honestly, all good professional development, regardless of the subject material, is really designed to encourage big A airmen, military, civilian, officer, to make one better choice. And really at the end of the day, if we can, again, going back to my original comments, add extra tools to our folks' toolboxes so that way they're equipped to make one better choice, whether that be on the flight line or whether that be out with the HFGCS or out refueling a plane or controlling aircraft into the airspace. One better choice, whether it be professional development from a big Air Force perspective or within our functional communities across Lajes and Marone, we're going to be unbeatable.
Awesome. Great place for people to focus on their professional development here. They got the education, they got their physical fitness, spiritual fitness, comprehensive airman fitness, and so this is the place to do it here and Marone, understanding that the 65th is responsible for the 496 over at Marone Air Base. Ma'am, question for you. So we fall under the USAFE Major Command. General Harigian uses 3 major titles or 3 major pillars: readiness, posture, and partnerships. And that partnerships was something that you mentioned. But how can we take those 3 pillars and how do you see them being executed, implemented specifically at Lajes Field and at Marone Air Base? Because they're 2 geographically separated units and they are 2 strategically located locations, runways and flight lines to be able to provide to the overall USAFE mission.
So recently, an example was at Marone, we ROMmed people for COVID. They stayed at Marone for the 14 days prior to going into the AFRICOM theater because it was a requirement for them to ROM, but where do they ROM? Where do we gather everybody together? So we were ensured that all of those individuals were safe and healthy so they could go downrange and complete their mission without getting delayed. So we made sure that was available. Readiness, we support readiness. We don't deploy from here because we're on a remote. However, we ensure that the people that are going downrange get downrange. We ensure that their planes get downrange. We ensure that the information that they need gets downrange. So we're an enabler in the readiness arena versus actually being in the AORs.
Awesome. And our partnerships you've already talked about with our local, with our host nation military, our local community, whether it be through the community events. That's coming up now is Halloween, and so we'll see if we were able to provide a nice event for our local community and our host nation.
And recently we just exercised. So we've started exercising with the local POAF, the Portuguese Air Force, and walk through a major accident response exercise on the runway to see how that would work, and we worked with the local agencies as well off the base, and so it's very interesting. We also are able to put one of our Portuguese-speaking Air Force members into their command and control center, and then we've put their English-speaking Air Force members into our command and control center to help bridge that gap between the 2 control centers and also bridge the language barrier. So that's been a huge step in the right direction.
If that's not partnership, nothing else is. And that's a great example to use at other locations for people to understand, because in a major accident response, we want to make sure that people are taken care of, and one of our primary missions is back up and running, our flight line. And so that's very important there.
And when you're already stressed, because that is a very stressful time, you need to already have those in place. You can't start when the event happens. You have to start years before it happens.
Prepping.
Yes.
Chief, do you have any final thoughts for Team 6-5?
Just a couple. The boss had mentioned the exchange of foreign language speakers. Big shout out to the LEAP program within the Air Force that seeks these folks, certifies them, certifies their capabilities, and then feeds locations like Marone and also Lajes with native language speakers to help us leverage their talents and increase that 3rd leg of USAFE's pillars partnership. So that would be one plug real quick for the LEAP program. The last piece that I would kind of throw out there, a little plug for Team Lajes is you know, we're one group, 4 squadrons, running 2 installations, and we're one family. That would be one piece that I would kind of put out there as a wrap up for Lajes. And because of that level of integration across the group, I would tell you that both Lajes and Marone, you had mentioned innovation earlier, and I think that's a point that maybe we need to circle back on. We have functions working with each other here at Lajes and Marone that don't normally interact at the level that they do. Here, specifically at Lajes, we have comm warriors and security force defenders living happily within the same squadron. That's not something you see very often across the Air Force. And so both at Lajes and Marone, we are poised to learn from each other in a way that maybe the rest of the Air Force maybe isn't. And so we have an opportunity for innovation here like I would say no other group really has in the Air Force.
That's awesome.
The Air Base Squadron is a very unique animal. I will agree, and that's where we bring that diversity piece in. Not only do our local populations bring a level of diversity, whether it's in Spain or here in Portugal, but having people who have different ways of thinking, from an operator working in the tower to a security forces to comm, all in the same squadron. Thinking outside of the box, it forces you to think out of the box. And that diversity in that AFSC piece, you bring also the diversity. Where are you from? Where were you raised? How were you raised? What kind of school did you go to? All that different thinking is like a melting pot in our squadrons. It breaks away from you were raised this way and you're going to keep going down that path. It really breaks you out of that mold, and you see people understanding other people in ways that they would not have been able to previously. And I think brilliant things come from that kind of environment.
So the 6.5 is very good at developing culturally sensitive airmen.
That's our goal.
So from here, we then spiderweb out to other units and then take that mentality and say, hey, you know, I can innovate. I can tell you different ways of doing stuff. I know what it's like to think like a defender or a cyber warrior.
And other cultures don't have to be scary. They just are different.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you very much for taking time out of your day and joining us. It's been wonderful. Hopefully we'll do this again in the next few months and see how you're going throughout your tour and how the 6.5 is doing.
Well, thank you for having us. We have some more exciting things coming up in the next couple months, so look forward to chatting with you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's it for our edition of Lajes Connect. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you. Take care.